I was with the Army Air Force. I was with the 398th Bomb Group in England, 20 miles north of London. And this is a picture of a B-17, and this is a picture of the crew that I had. A B-17 has 10-member crews: pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, engineer, radio operator, ball turret gunner, 2 waist gunners, and a tail gunner. That means we had 10 50 caliber machine guns. That's why I called it a fine fortress. The plane was a large four-engine heavy-duty bomber. It had, when it was brand new, it weighed 54,000 pounds. And because of the weight, and we had to add all these other things, crew, gasoline, bombs, all that stuff, we only could get 150 miles per hour flying, unless the wind was blowing. If the wind was blowing, we would be not that fast. If the wind was behind us, we could go faster. Now, what we did, like, but we had over there, we had the officers and the enlisted men would not be together except on the plane. So the officers had a Quonset hut that carried 8 members, two crews. And in that Quonset hut, it was made like a U-shape, metal, and had a front and a back wood door. It also had electricity, it had heat, and it had a loudspeaker that they could hook up from the main building. That on the day we were making the run, at 4 o'clock in the morning, Reveille was played over that loudspeaker to wake us up. Then we went and got dressed and went to breakfast. After breakfast, we went to a meeting where they gave us the target, the weather report, the height that we were going to bomb from. They also gave us position we would fly. Now, there were a squadron that had 6 planes, and there were 4 squadrons that bombed. So they would give us position in our squadron where we fly, and also the position of the squadron, the one in the lead, one on the left, one on the right, one in behind. We did that for protection from the fighter pilots that Germans set up. Now, we would go to this meeting, and after the meeting, we went to the plane. The enlisted men got the guns and ammunition, and we went out and inspected the plane, be sure that all repairs were made so that it would take off properly. All right. Then we had a radio operator had to take a small gasoline engine and crank it up. That gave us power to run the radio. And the radio operator would listen to see whether that was going to go or be scrubbed. And if it's a go, then the enlisted men would have to turn these propellers 6 times to get fuel up in the engines. because there's no power to do it. Now, also, if it was a go, then that power from that little engine we had would start the left outside motor, and that gave us power on the whole plane. And then the radio operator would go back and close that little engine off. Now, the bombers, the bomb, we had a 10,000-pound bomb we put in Bombay. And there was the wings were the gasoline engine tanks. And there were 250 gallons in those. And after we got a signal to go, we would take off and fly. And always in England, there was rain or fog. So we had to fly above the rain and fog. And we would get to a radio station and then fly around it until we could get our formation together. And then after formation, then we would start climbing on the thing that they told us to go to the anyway. They and once we got 10,000 feet, we had to go on oxygen because up at from above 10,000 there's no oxygen, so the plane had to supply oxygen. And up at 28 to 30,000 feet, it was around 20 to 15 degrees below zero. So we had to wear heavy clothing. And once we got towards the bomb area, we would turn right or left 90 degrees and for 10 miles. And once we did that, that gave us time to get over the target and drop the bombs without those fighter pilots getting up to altitude, and also the anti-aircraft guns shooting up at us. Now the anti-aircraft guns would shoot shells that had all kind of little pieces of metal in them, and that metal would explode and then go into our planes because the plane was only made of a aluminum sheeting. And once we dropped our bombs, then we'd head back home. If we got over the target and there were clouds, we could not see the target. Then we had to turn around and come back and take out what we call a target of opportunity. That would be airports, fuel tanks, railroad with things, or a plant that produced war things. And if we could not drop those bombs on something like that, we had to drop them in the ocean because the bombs were armed, and if we landed with them, they would explode. So we couldn't land with them. All right, now I got over there about a month before the invasion of the Allies, and my first two missions was Guns of Navarone. Now there was a movie that they made called The Guns of Navarone. Now the Guns of Navarone were on the south side of Omaha Beach. That's where the invasion was. These guns could shoot 20 miles out at ships. So our bombing mission was to knock those guns out. Well, we went and we had 6 planes and dropped 4 250-pound bombs on those guns. We got back to our mission, and they said that the guns were still operating. So we had to go back the next day and do it again. And then after that, we found out that the Germans had put so much concrete and steel over them that the bombs wouldn't penetrate. So the Rangers that were landed in Omaha Beach had to go up there and knock them out. When Pearl Harbor happened, yeah, I was in high school and driving. My parents had a grocery store, and I was going to the bank to make a deposit for them, and I heard it on the radio. So when I graduated from high school, I was, of course, 18, and I had to sign up for the draft. So then I got called right after that, I got called to the Army. And then the Army, I found I could qualify for Air Force. So I went in the Air Force cadet program. And cadet program was to give pilot, navigators, and bombardier training. So after I did that, then I went back home and got called to go to basic training, where I spent 3 months in Miami Beach, and then went to Erskine College, Dufresne, South Carolina, 6 months for training in things that we needed for these different type positions. And after that, we sent us to Texas, where we went out there and took tests to qualify for what we wanted to do. And out there, I took the test and passed all, and they put me into pilot training for 6 weeks. And then they had a shortage of navigators. So they called 6 of us back for navigation school. So then I finished navigation school. Then they sent me to Tampa at Drew Field for our crew to be assembled and for us to train 3 months. And then we sent overseas to England. Okay. What else?
Did the Great Depression affect you?
Well, depression, yeah, before when I was young in school. It was depression oh, attached to everybody because, there wasn't any money, it wasn't any jobs or anything. So, of course, it didn't affect me too much because we was in the grocery business, but it affected the business. Now, of course, we got through that, and then after when the war started, then everything picked back up. Okay.
Um, what do you remember Victory in Europe Day?
Yeah, it was in May of 1945. I was still over there, and when the last mission I was on was bomb Berlin, and after that mission, then they surrendered, and then they sent us back to the States. So I came back to the States to Texas, and there I stayed in Texas until I got enough points where I could get not discharged, but just get out of the service. As an officer, you couldn't get a discharge because they spent so much money training us that we had spent 7 years in reserve. So I did that. And while I was in reserve, I went to Emory University, took pre-med. After I finished pre-med, there was 900 war veterans trying to get in medical school, and they only take 65. So since I couldn't get in that year, I went to business school where I finished and got a BBA with management in accounting. Then I came to Columbus, got into the textile business.
Very cool. Um, do you have any like really cool stories of World War II?
Well, one of the missions we was on, the front of the plane was plexiglass, and they got shot out, and the bombardier got killed. And then when he got killed, it knocked all the oxygen out, so we had to go back down to about 5 or 6 thousand feet. And at that altitude, you fly at 150, it gets you back over these places right quicker. If you're up at 28, 30,000, it looks like you're just barely moving from the ground. But when you're down low, it moves you real fast. So we did that. And then when we had to land in across the White Cliffs of Dover, and in White Cliffs of Dover, they had a uh, airport over there that was double width and double length. So if the plane was damaged, we could land. And then they would take that plane and repair it.
Cool. Um, did you get any medals for your service?
Yeah, well, of course, every 6 missions you got a little flight medal, and then I don't know, I got some medals, but I don't have them anymore, so I just don't really worry about them. I had 4 or 5.
Cool. Um, what did you learn from World War II?
I learned that things were bad, and hope that that future would never be that way again.
Um, were you ever wounded?
No,
Was so? Did any planes ever like attack you, like German planes?
well, yeah, the fighter planes, but we had, of course, we had all those machine guns. We also had P-51s that came and helped protect us, and so that any planes that would come, they would fly around them and try to help knock them out. But there's always something there. That's why we flew in a real close formation, so those planes could get between us.
Um, how many missions were you in?
17.
Wow. Um, was the food good in World War II?
Beg pardon?
Was the army food good or not good?
Oh, well, the Air Force, a few years after the war, became a separate division
Yes.
from the Army.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Was the Air Force food good?
The Air Force was the Army Air Force when I was in it. But then afterwards, it separated.
Yes. What would you like today's generations to know about World War II?
That it's a bad situation, and for the politicians not to get us into war again.
I agree. Um, is there anything else I forgot to ask you, or is that all?
That's all I know of, except this. I would give you this. That's 2 candlestick holders that are 100% brass. Those brass candlesticks were made from the shells, empty shells that we shot in the plane. And we had Italian POWs that would come and repair the planes when they were damaged. And they would take those shells and melt them and make products like this. And I swapped some cigarettes for those that I didn't use, and still have them.